Jacksonville is massive, technically one of America's biggest cities. But walk through it and something feels off. Why does this giant city feel empty, scattered, and strangely unfinished? Jacksonville carries a reputation that sounds impressive at first glance. Official statistics place Jacksonville among the largest cities in the United States. In Florida, Jacksonville stands at the top in terms of population within city limits. When land area enters the conversation, Jacksonville becomes even more surprising. The city covers more ground than New York City, Chicago, and Philadelphia combined. That single comparison alone creates a powerful image. Most people instantly imagine a dense skyline stretching across miles, packed streets filled with energy, and a downtown buzzing day and night. But the moment someone actually drives through Jacksonville, something feels different. The skyline appears modest. Neighborhoods stretch endlessly in every direction. Major roads feel wide and open rather than crowded. Instead of moving through a tight, vertical urban environment, Jacksonville often feels horizontal and spread out. The expectation and the experience do not match. That mismatch is not random. It is the result of a very specific decision that reshaped the city decades ago. To understand why Jacksonville feels so different from cities with similar rankings, it is necessary to look at how Jacksonville grew and how Jacksonville redefined itself in a way that few other cities ever have. Jacksonville did not begin as a sprawling giant. Jacksonville started in 1822 as a river town along the St. Johns River. Like many southern cities, Jacksonville developed gradually. The river supported trade and transportation. Businesses formed around that access. Neighborhoods expanded outward from a defined center. For many years, Jacksonville followed a predictable pattern of growth. By the early 1950s, Jacksonville had just over 200,000 residents and covered roughly 30 square miles. Jacksonville looked like what most people would call a normal, mid-sized American city. There was a downtown core. Surrounding neighborhoods had clear boundaries. The city government managed a relatively compact area. At that time, no one would have described Jacksonville as unusual. Then broader national trends began to reshape cities across the United States. After World War II, suburban development accelerated rapidly. Families moved away from dense cores into newer neighborhoods farther from downtown. Businesses followed residents outward. Highways made commuting by car easier. This pattern unfolded in Jacksonville just as it did in countless other metropolitan areas. However, Jacksonville faced a particular challenge. As people and businesses moved into neighboring communities outside the city's official boundaries, Jacksonville's original city government began losing tax revenue. Meanwhile, the surrounding areas still relied on infrastructure and services connected to the broader region. Multiple governments managed overlapping responsibilities. Planning became fragmented. Coordinating growth became more complicated and expensive. Jacksonville reached a point where leaders believed the existing system was no longer efficient. The city needed a structural solution rather than small adjustments. In 1968, Jacksonville made a decision that permanently changed the city's trajectory. Jacksonville consolidated the city government with Duval County. Instead of maintaining separate jurisdictions, Jacksonville absorbed almost the entire county under one unified government. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Jacksonville's land area expanded overnight. What had once been a relatively compact city became the largest city by land area in the contiguous United States. Urban neighborhoods, new suburban developments, rural land, wetlands, and undeveloped areas all became part of Jacksonville at once. The population statistics changed just as quickly. By the 1970 census, Jacksonville's population surged to over 528,000 residents. The jump represented a massive increase in a single decade. On paper, Jacksonville transformed into a major American city in both size and ranking. From a financial perspective, consolidation offered stability. Tax revenue from suburban areas remained within city limits. Jacksonville avoided some of the fiscal struggles that affected other cities during that era. The unified government simplified certain administrative processes. Leaders believed Jacksonville had positioned itself for long-term growth. But consolidation also locked Jacksonville into a very different urban structure compared to most large American cities. Most major cities grow outward gradually. Over time, dense cores remain relatively tight, while surrounding suburbs operate as separate municipalities. Chicago, Boston, and Philadelphia all follow that pattern. Each has a defined city boundary, and surrounding suburbs maintain independent governments. Jacksonville did something unusual. Instead of slowly absorbing surrounding communities, Jacksonville absorbed almost everything at once. The city limits suddenly included vast stretches of suburban neighborhoods and rural land that were never designed to function as a dense urban center. This structural difference shaped how Jacksonville developed in the decades that followed. Because much of the population already lived outside the traditional downtown core, when consolidation occurred, new growth focused heavily on suburban-style development. Single-family homes dominated residential construction. Roads were designed to accommodate vehicles rather than pedestrians. Zoning regulations separated housing from offices and retail spaces. The numbers reflect this design. Jacksonville's average density sits around 1,200 people per square mile. That figure is dramatically lower than cities, often compared to Jacksonville in population size. Miami and Chicago are significantly denser. Even Houston, widely known for being spread out, has a higher density than Jacksonville. When density is low, urban energy spreads thin. Fewer residents live within walking distance of businesses. Public transportation struggles to operate efficiently across large distances. The built environment begins to resemble a collection of suburban zones rather than a unified urban core. Downtown Jacksonville illustrates this difference clearly. A city approaching 1 million residents would normally feature a skyline filled with residential towers and office buildings. Downtown Miami provides an example of what that might look like. High-rise apartments cluster around business districts. Thousands of residents live within walking distance of restaurants, parks, and transit stops. Downtown Jacksonville feels more restrained. There are only a handful of true skyscrapers. Large surface parking lots occupy prime land. Government buildings and low-rise offices fill blocks that could support far more residential density. After traditional business hours, parts of downtown feel quiet. This is not because Jacksonville lacks ambition. It is because Jacksonville's population is dispersed across a massive area. When residents are spread across hundreds of square miles, fewer people rely on downtown as a daily destination. Without concentrated demand, high-density development becomes harder to justify financially. The result is a downtown that appears smaller than the city's ranking would suggest. Visitors expecting a towering skyline sometimes leave confused. The statistics promise one experience. Physical reality delivers another. Jacksonville's physical layout also shapes daily life in practical ways. Because neighborhoods are spread across such a large area, driving becomes the most practical option for most residents. Trips to work, school, or grocery stores often involve covering long distances. Wide roads and large bridges reflect that priority. The St. Johns River divides the city in half. While bridges connect different sections, most crossings are designed primarily for vehicles. Public transportation exists, but the system is largely bus-based. The Skyway operates downtown, yet coverage remains limited. For many residents living far from the urban core, public transit does not provide a convenient alternative to driving. Low density makes transit more difficult to sustain. Routes must cover long distances to reach enough riders. Ridership numbers remain modest compared to cities with denser populations. Investment decisions become complex when usage remains relatively low. National studies ranking commute times and walkability have placed Jacksonville near the bottom among large cities. That ranking stems directly from the city's design rather than a lack of effort. Jacksonville's structure encourages driving simply because destinations are far apart. If you're enjoying this breakdown of how city planning shapes daily life, subscribe so you do not miss future deep dives into other cities with surprising stories. Jacksonville is not stagnant. In recent years, the metropolitan area has experienced strong population growth. Between 2022 and 2024, Jacksonville ranked among the fastest-growing metro areas in the country by percentage. Projections indicate continued expansion in the coming years. Economic growth has accompanied population increases, drawing new residents and businesses. Growth amplifies existing patterns. If development continues primarily in low-density formats, traffic congestion could intensify. Commutes may lengthen. Infrastructure demands will increase. Expanding outward requires additional roads, utilities, and services across large distances. At the same time, growth provides opportunity. Jacksonville still has large underutilized areas within city limits. Surface parking lots in downtown represent potential housing and mixed-use projects. Vacant parcels near infrastructure corridors could support more compact development without disrupting established neighborhoods. Few cities possess this combination of scale and available land. Jacksonville does. The direction Jacksonville chooses will shape whether the city feels more cohesive in the future. When people describe Jacksonville as feeling like a fake city, the comment usually reflects a psychological reaction rather than a literal accusation. The term captures the gap between expectation and experience. Large numbers create a mental image of density and constant activity. When reality feels quieter and more dispersed, the mind searches for an explanation. Cities are often associated with shared spaces, walkable streets, and visible crowds. Jacksonville offers those elements in certain pockets, but not across the entire landscape. Instead, Jacksonville often presents long stretches of residential neighborhoods and commercial corridors separated by distance. That does not mean Jacksonville lacks culture, opportunity, or community. It means Jacksonville developed differently. The consolidation decision created a city defined more by geographic scale than by vertical intensity. Understanding that difference removes some of the mystery. Jacksonville is not pretending to be something it is not. Jacksonville simply operates under a unique structure compared to most large American cities. Jacksonville stands at an interesting moment. Population growth continues. Economic indicators remain strong. Developers and planners face choices about how to accommodate future residents. One path maintains the existing pattern. Continued outward expansion preserves the suburban character that many residents appreciate. Larger lots and lower density offer space and privacy. Another path focuses on strategic densification. Downtown redevelopment could increase residential capacity. Mixed-use projects along major corridors could reduce dependence on long car trips. Transit investments could become more viable if population clusters grow. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong. The question is balance. Jacksonville's advantage lies in flexibility. With so much land available, Jacksonville has the opportunity to experiment with different models without facing the extreme constraints that denser cities encounter. The city's identity will evolve based on these choices. Jacksonville can remain expansive and suburban in feel while gradually strengthening urban nodes. The key is intentional planning, rather than automatic continuation of past trends. What direction do you believe Jacksonville should take as growth continues? Share your thoughts in the comments and explore the next video to see how another fast-growing city is facing a similar crossroads.